It's a good shot. No, Joe.
That looks good.
Yeah.
That looks real good.
I'm looking forward to this meal.
We're gonna make it as a team, or should we part ways right now and I go home?
I think we might just do all right together.
Facing fierce crocodile hatchlings and adorable crabs, how do they fill their stomachs? Sri Lanka is a teardrop-shaped island not far from the Indian coast, home to some of the world's densest jungles, many venomous snakes, wild elephants, and dangerous animals like crocodiles. The coastline is lined with mangroves. Survival experts Cody and Joe are ready to challenge the area. Find tools prepared by the production team, a broken rubber boat, and a plastic box containing an iron box with a matchbook holding just one match. They plan to dismantle the boat's engine. Cody vertically presses the plastic box into the water upside down to create air pockets. Joe works underwater. Cody scans the surroundings to prevent crocodile attacks. Joe locates the propeller, removing cotter pins and screws. Cody frantically taps the plastic box, signaling approaching animals. It's terrifyingly jellyfish, whose venom can kill adults. Joe speeds up as jellyfish approach. Joe surfaces with the propeller but wants to remove the fuel line. Cautious, Cody refuses. Under Joe's insistence, they continue. Joe quickly finishes. They start heading inland. Mangroves act as a buffer against ocean tides, increasing the risk of stings and drowning during high tide. They see a river, move forward, and hear a hiss. It's a crocodile hatchling. Though it looks delicious, its mother is nearby. Sri Lanka has saltwater crocodiles, averaging 30 unprovoked attacks annually, with mothers being the most aggressive. They flee. Joe slips, falls into a hole, and can't move. Cody pulls him, stepping into another hole. Fortunately, it's shallow, and he easily climbs out. He continues pulling Joe out. After their efforts, Joe is rescued. They head to the jungle. After walking, they see land as dusk approaches. They need shelter. A kapok tree can serve as a night cover. Cody modifies it, considering fire. Joe searches for water. Cody collects saplings, stacking them on the kapok tree for a hammock. He gathers bark for bedding, creating a fragrant bed. Cody is pleased with his work. Joe finds no drinkable water, but makes a weapon. He cuts a red tree, finds a hard rind orange, strips it for rope, wraps the propeller, and creates a protective weapon. Cody sets up fire, splits the match, chooses a larger head, lights it, and makes a fire starter from his scarf. He inserts it into the iron box, heats it, producing flammable material. Joe sees crab holes, plans a crab trap. He selects flexible branches, arranges them in a cross, weaves vines, and adds a smaller basket inside. He lures crabs with clams, kills them, and sets the trap. They rest on Cody's hammock. The next day, they check the trap. Joe retrieves a large crab. Though hungry, they prioritize water. They take the crab, wrap it, and search for water. They see a cobra. Joe wants to kill it, but Cody warns against it. The cobra leaves, unthreatened. This is the clear river water in the jungle. Cody picks it up and drinks. They spend a day searching for fresh water. To carry the water, Cody needs a container. He chooses a bamboo stalk, forcefully chopping it with a small knife, then pushes it to get a good piece. With water, they start their journey. They need to find shelter. Walking through the jungle is very difficult, requiring constant caution around hard objects. They soon see exposed rocks, perfect for shelter, but they see cat prints on the ground. Roaring from a cave frightens them away. They continue searching and find a similar spot. They carefully observe, seeing no animal prints, deciding to camp here. Cody gathers firewood. Joe builds shelter. It starts raining. Joe prepares bamboo for protection. Cody returns with firewood, quickly lighting a fire. Joe cuts a bamboo piece, hollows it, pours fresh water, heats it. Next, they cook crabs. To end his suffering quickly, Joe stabs the vital area, snaps the crab's claws, declares its death, then roasts it. It's delicious, top-notch. As dawn breaks, they search for human traces. They see elephant dung. Hearing water, they spot a waterfall, a beautiful sight. Joe wants to climb to the top to check for an exit. He circumvents it, slipping on mossy terrain. With steep topography, Joe, experienced in climbing, safely ascends. He quickly observes, spotting wild elephants through the trees, fleeing. Now, to descend, he uses a vine and a fallen tree. Cody assists below. Can Joe safely descend? Breaking one underfoot. He warns Cody, who dodges. Now the vine breaks. Joe must climb down the tree. It's not easy. He slowly moves his buttocks, sliding down. His buttocks hit a branch. He continues. Finally, with Cody's help, he descends. They replan, flowing downstream. But Cody fears gravity pulling them back to the mangrove swamp, so they walk. Joe discovers something, a towel-like cloth on a tree. Testing water speed, he swims to the other side. It's an old garment. Though unclear why, Joe finds the terrain more open. He calls Cody to cross. Cody, with equipment, swims, following Joe's route. They enter the jungle, find a pit, rough digging, resembling a tiger trap, actually a gem mine. Sri Lanka is known for precious gems, so destruction is common. Cody finds oxidized engine parts, showing long abandonment. He sees a copper pipe, taking it. They return to the river, find a lake ahead. Many trees in the middle, shallow water, but they're cautious, walking the shore. Joe discovers something, but Cody panics, calling him up. There are crocodiles in the river, a noble bloodline, patrolling, meeting humans, trying to improve their diet, but the humans ran faster than rabbits. Joe pointed to the wreckage of a makeshift boat he had just discovered. It was likely left behind by treasure hunters. They worked together to drag the wreckage back to shore. They were preparing to repair it. However, it was getting late. Their top priority was to build a shelter. The two re-entered the jungle. They searched for a while. They found a suitable spot. The terrain was quite high, which was advantageous for observation. There was also a natural hiding spot nearby. Joe went to find food. Cody figured out how to survive. He wanted to examine the electric coil taken from the propeller. Then he chopped down a small tree and processed it into a piston. He dug a concave slot at the front. When the electric coil was fitted, it would form a sealed state. He then made a compressed fire bucket from copper tubing. Everything was now ready. Joe continued to search for any edible food. He found porcupine quills under a rock. He was preparing to set a trap. He chose a small tree next to the rock. He cut off the excess parts. He obtained a flexible branch. He then selected a V-shaped branch as the trigger. He hammered it into the ground with a stone. He found a tree vine. He tied a knot. When the porcupine's head went through it, the knot would tighten. It would throw it into the air. Joe tied the tree vine to the branch. He then bent the branch and fixed it to the trigger. When an animal walked by, it would be hung up. Cody collected some tinder. He crushed them. He then put some tape into them. He also placed a small piece of tape on the piston head. Cody had to push the piston down with enough force. Compressed oxygen would produce high heat, but the first attempt failed. The subsequent attempts were also ineffective. Without fire, they couldn't disinfect water. Cody had to keep trying. This time, there was a spark in the fire basket. Finally, they successfully started a fire. They used a bamboo tube to heat the water. Joe praised Cody's technical skills. They were silent all night. Joe went to check the porcupine trap he had set up the previous night. The trap was triggered, but there was no sign of a porcupine. Only a pile of porcupine quills was left on the ground. It had escaped the trap. The tree vine still couldn't replace the rope's function. Cody and Joe returned to the lake. They needed to repair the raft and explore the lake. The raft's condition was very poor. They decided to collect the wood piled up on the lakeside first, but much of the wood had been soaking in water for too long and lost its buoyancy. Joe had to focus on the tree in the middle of the lake. He carefully approached it. He kept an eye out for crocodiles that might appear at any moment. He got close to the target. Although the underwater wood was rotten, Joe couldn't push it over, so he climbed up the tree. He used his body weight to push it. The wood brought Joe into the water with it. Joe coughed as he floated to the surface. He dragged the wood back to shore. He was preparing to place all the wood under the raft, but the piece of wood Joe had brought back was too long, so he broke it in half. Then he tied the raft with tree vines. They pushed the raft into the water. The raft successfully supported the two of them. They headed towards the opposite shore. At this point, Joe noticed the crocodile reappear. He stood up and started rowing, but the raft kept spinning in place. They acted together. They worked together to control the direction. The raft finally moved in the desired direction, but the crocodile had already noticed them. Cody and Joe had to speed up, but bad news kept coming. The water was too deep. Joe's wooden pole couldn't reach the lake bottom. Cody had to do it alone, and the crocodile was coming at full speed. Joe entered the water. He used the raft as a float. It served as the engine, but Cody heard the oil drum leaking. They had very little time left. Joe pushed the raft underwater with all his strength. Cody rowed hard in front. Their pace was gradually sinking. They were getting heavier and heavier. Fortunately, after their efforts, they successfully reached the opposite shore. Then they entered the forest to look for help. The road ahead became wider, and there was even a small hill ahead. They decided to climb to a high vantage point. It was a slope covered with loose rocks. Rocks could roll down at any moment. They risked their lives to successfully reach the top. There were many farms below. They were finally rescued. The Arabian desert. a vast landscape filled with sand dunes and scorching sun. Only the local Bedouins can adapt to life in this barren land. However, for those unfamiliar with the desert, survival becomes a game of life and death. Survival experts Cody and Joe will demonstrate how to survive here. Find the equipment prepared by the production team: a tripod, a telescope, 2 camel blankets, and a water bottle filled with water. This is currently the most precious resource. The scorching sun accelerates the loss of sweat. Cody covers his entire body with a shawl. He disassembles the tripod, obtaining 2 walking sticks. They need to first determine the direction of travel. They must climb to a higher advantageous position to find potential shelters, water, and the possibility of rescue. They prepare to walk to the top of the dune. The weather is getting hotter. Climbing the dune is really uncomfortable. The physical exertion is twice normal. When they reach the top, they realize how desolate this place is. Joe circles around observing. He sees mountains in the distance. He also sees 2 trees, but it could be a mirage. They head towards the direction of the 2 trees. Going downhill is simple and enjoyable. Lean back and kick your legs forward. They easily run down. The sun becomes even more scorching. Joe covers his face with a scarf, wears sunglasses to reduce sweat loss, and try to communicate with gestures to avoid water vapor evaporating from the mouth. After a while, they finally reach the 2 trees. This robust plant is called the acacia tree. It can survive in the harshest desert climate. Its roots can reach 30 meters deep into the groundwater level. Cody notices camel droppings on the ground. Not far away is a pile of bones. They decide to rest in the shade of the tree, using a shawl and camel blankets to make a shelter. But the wind is strong. The shelter is not stable. Cody picks up some bones as anchors. They rest inside and replenish water. Animal bones are everywhere in the scorching desert. In this harsh environment, 2 men are challenging it. When the sun starts to set, they pack up and prepare to leave. Joe stares at Cody in disbelief. Because Cody is picking up feces, it turns out he was preparing to start a fire. Camel droppings are excellent fuel. After hearing Cody's explanation, Joe finally feels relieved. He almost thought Cody was going to eat it. They plan to head towards the mountains. There is a high probability of finding water. The sun sets. The moon rises. The temperature at night is perfect for walking, and the stars provide a spectacular view. They accelerate their pace under the cover of night. When dawn breaks, they are not far from the mountains, but they have drunk all the water. Now they hope everything is on the mountains. As they get closer, green vegetation begins to appear. They find dew on the plants, can moisten their dry lips. Morning dew carries a natural fragrance, refreshing the mind and body. Cody also uses a shawl to absorb moisture. When the sun rises, they continue on their way. At this time, Cody sees an animal run under the tree. It's a hedgehog. Cody instantly smiles. He's eyeing this delicacy. The lizard buries its head under a branch. Feeling very safe, unaware of a giant approaching stealthily, it's caught by the tail. The lizard straightens its body, stays motionless. It's playing dead, but it can't fool Cody. He slashes its throat. Cody cuts the lizard open from the belly, removes the organs, supports it with small branches, to slowly cook the meat through the desert's heat. As they continue, eagles circle in the sky, welcoming their arrival. Cody and Joe enter a canyon terrain. Currently, it's a dry riverbed, but there are clouds ahead. If it rains heavily there, this canyon will instantly turn red. For safety, they split up. Joe climbs to the top of the canyon as a lookout. Cody searches for water in the canyon. Joe takes out the telescope and observes for a while. Tells Cody good news. The clouds are dispersing. The canyon ahead is becoming open. Joe walked along the mountain ridge. He was heading to the peak. He was preparing to survey the entire canyon. The slope became steeper and steeper. Danger was everywhere. Fortunately, Joe was a retired Special Forces soldier. He had rich climbing experience. However, the rocks under his feet were very loose. He had to hold on tightly with both hands. He struggled to climb up. He broke out in a cold sweat. He continued forward. Finally, he successfully reached the peak. He used the telescope to observe. He found that the canyon would keep winding back and forth. As far as he could see, there were only rocks and desert. It was truly a disappointing scene. Joe had to go back to find Cody. He wanted to bring him the bad news. The only choice now was to continue along the canyon. After a while, they saw a crack on the side. When they looked down, there was actually a pool of water. It was truly exciting. But how to get down was a problem. Here was a completely vertical rock wall. It was possible to go down but not come back up. Cody thought of a way. He would use this rope and the shredded blanket to lower the water bottle to fetch water. Joe tore open the blanket. He got a finer rope. He tied it to the water bottle. To prevent the water bottle from slipping, Joe tied it up tightly. He held the water bottle and the walking stick and went to the water's edge. He slowly lowered the water bottle, but it floated on the surface. This was not good. Joe lifted it up. Then he suddenly let it go. He relied on inertia to make the water bottle sink into the water. Joe finally succeeded. He slowly pulled the water bottle back up. Cody prepared to start a fire. He took out the camel droppings. He ground them into powder. This was easier to ignite. He also collected some tinder. The telescope had a magnifying glass. Cody wanted to use the bright sunlight as a source of fire, but the sun was blocked by clouds. When the sun came out, Cody continued to try. He succeeded, but Cody still couldn't start a fire, and the clouds blocked the sun again. They kept trying back and forth many times. Cody finally succeeded in starting a fire. They put the water bottle in the fire to heat it. When the water boiled, they put the water bottle in the shade to cool it down. The feeling of replenishing water was too good. Then Cody roasted the lizard. Soon, the smell of grilled meat spread. Joe tore off a piece and tasted it. It didn't taste very good, but it could provide good energy. They spent a wonderful night eating the lizard. When it was morning, they continued on their way. More plants appeared. They heard the sound of flowing water. They saw water seeping out of the rock wall. They followed the water flow. The road was not easy to walk. They passed through various harsh terrains. They arrived at an open area. They saw artificial stone walls. When they got closer, they saw a town in the distance. They finally walked out of the desert alive. Norway has 1,100 miles of ice and permafrost. It is covered with steep mountain peaks and long glaciers. This environment is especially dangerous in winter. A misstep could bury you in an avalanche, or trap you in a deep crevasse instantly. Death could happen in an instant. Survival experts Cody and Joe explored the glacier. Joe fell into the cave opening. Below was a pitch-black ice cave. If he fell in, he would be crushed. Now he relied on Cody pulling him. But this was not a long-term solution. He had to put the rope around a carabiner, but it was just a little short. Cody was sweating profusely because of the urgency. Under Joe's encouragement, Cody finally completed the task. He checked the screwdriver bits. He found that both were wet. They would melt in just 10 minutes. He hoped Joe would come up soon, but Joe saw a backpack below. He didn't want to abandon the supplies. He told Cody to slowly lower the rope. To prevent a direct fall, Cody took out a climbing harness. He threaded the rope through it. He slowly loosened it. Joe began to fall. He was approaching the backpack, but the rope was not long enough. Joe was still a distance from the backpack. He had to swing the rope. By swinging, he approached the backpack. Cody was standing on the anchor, because it was melting. Fortunately, Joe successfully got the backpack. He took out the equipment. He used the rope to slowly lift himself. Finally, he used his hands and feet to climb up. Joe's hand was cut. He lost a lot of blood. They checked the backpack. There was a box of cigarettes, a non-functional lighter, a climbing rope, and a satellite phone. Joe immediately fiddled with it, but unfortunately, it wouldn't turn on. They then checked the sled. There was a reindeer skin, a snow shovel, and some ropes. They took all the supplies and started out. They had to leave the glacier quickly. If they couldn't find shelter before dark, they would freeze to death. After a while, they entered a barren area called the high ground. Now they were advancing at 50 miles per hour against the wind. Their hands were frozen to the point of pain. The ice and snow were directly blown into their faces. It was too cold to bear. They had to find shelter quickly. This man was only wearing shorts and socks. Walking through the icy wilderness, while his companions were fully armed, they still felt the biting cold. They saw a rock formation. Joe proposed building something here, but Cody believed the wind would blow directly into the rocks. It was impossible to stay here. They should continue forward. But Joe was very worried about Cody's body. The weather was freezing to death. He was wearing shorts. This already endangered both of their safety, but Cody did not agree. He was the one who taught how to survive in the cold, not Joe. So he listened to him and continued forward, and he was wearing 3 pairs of wool socks. His feet were very warm. Joe felt Cody's recklessness would put them in danger. They had a fierce argument. In the end, Joe compromised. They didn't know what was ahead. They could only trudge forward against the cold wind. Finally, Joe saw a dead rabbit in the snow. It was frozen stiff. They put the rabbit in the sled and continued on. Now there was only 1 hour until dark. They saw some juniper on exposed rocks. They could build shelter here. Cody prepared to clear the snow, then build a snow wall. Joe went to collect some juniper, lay it on the ground. To insulate the cold ground, Cody sprinkled snow directly on the wall to block cracks and holes, making the wall stronger. Joe threw his backpack and reindeer skin inside. They crawled in. They could only rely on their body heat to survive the cold night. The next day, they continued on. They soon met a small stream, and it was flowing water. They just needed to follow the current to have a chance of finding civilization. After a while, they entered the forest. The snow began to melt, revealing many mosses and ferns, but the sled was not suitable for this terrain. Joe was panting from exhaustion. It was time to abandon the sled. They packed useful supplies into the backpack, then cut the sailcloth off the sled and tied it with the rabbit to the backpack. Joe put the backpack on his back. They continued on. Soon they met a larger stream. Seeing such clear water, they couldn't resist drinking. Then, they needed to build shelter. They decided to observe the surroundings first. Finally, they chose an open area to build a dome-shaped shelter. They drove some branches into the ground, then bent them and tied them together, forming a dome structure. Then, they covered the sides with moss. The rest of the work was done by Cody alone. Joe went to find materials to start a fire and make a bed. Joe saw a pile of food under a pine tree. This was food dropped by squirrels. When they ate from the tree, he looked up. Sure enough, there was a squirrel nest in the tree. The contents were very dry, very suitable for kindling. Joe came back with a rope. He wanted to climb the tree to take down the nest. With this climbing gear, Joe moved quickly, easily taking down the nest. He threw it on the ground. When he returned to camp, Cody had already built the shelter. The contents of the nest were indeed very dry. Cody was responsible for starting the fire. Joe went to find some things to lay on the ground. Cody took out a lighter, frictioned it on the snow shovel, leaving ashes. Then he took off the filter from the cigarette, obtaining very fine threads. Then he put the ashes on the filter threads. Finally, he lit it with the lighter, putting the burning threads into the kindling. Finally, he successfully started a fire. Joe came back with some branches. He wanted to cut open the rabbit. To see if it was edible, Cody went to the river to look for fish. They split up. The rabbit was frozen hard. Joe just used force to break its limbs, then cut open its belly. He didn't smell any strange odor, but saw some blood. The rabbit might have died from sepsis. Joe decided if Cody caught fish, he wouldn't eat the rabbit. Cody arrived at the river. There were indeed fish in the water. This area had many trout. Cody took many rocks, preparing to enclose a small area, then cover it with branches. The fish would naturally hide under the branches. Cody began to hit the water with rocks, then used a stick to drive the fish, making the fish school move downstream. Into the enclosure, the fish slowly walked into Cody's trap. Cody threw away the stick, carefully lifted the branches, and gently touched the water. Then in a flash, he threw a fish out of the water, then another. Facing the jumping fish, Cody directly stunned them with rocks, then strung them up and brought them back to camp. Soon, the camp was filled with the smell of grilled fish. This was a natural delicacy, whetting their appetites. When it was morning, they continued on. They arrived at a cliff. Water could be heard from below. There were no paths on both sides. They decided to use a rappel to reach the bottom. They tied the rope to a big tree, then descended along the rope. Their feet were on loose rocks. Every step required caution. Finally, they successfully reached the bottom. There were signs of human activity, and a boat appeared on the lake. They were finally rescued. Survival expert Joe is heading to a remote jungle island in Panama to find a mysterious partner, nature's son Matt, a master of primitive survival skills and a true hunter-gatherer. Panama is bordered by the Caribbean Sea to the north and the Pacific Ocean to the south. There are over 1,500 islands within its borders. Most of them are uninhabited. This story takes place on one of these small islands. Matt has been surviving on the island for 3 weeks. He knows Joe will come looking for him, but he doesn't know the exact date. Joe only has a map, compass, binoculars, and a machete. He checks the map. It shows Matt's last known location, but this is information from 3 weeks ago. Joe can only go to this place first, then look for Matt's tracks. Joe is a retired Special Forces soldier with rich tracking skills. He frequently checks the map to confirm his direction of travel. He quickly finds Matt's previous location. Then he finds human-made traces on the ground, clearly indicating an upward path. Joe observes his surroundings as he moves forward, not missing any details. He sees broken branches, then discovers animal organs. By touching, he judges the organs to be fresh. These clues are very important. They show he's on the right track. Not far from there, Joe hears a melodious instrument sound. He sees a master lost in self-indulgence. They warmly shake hands. From then on, they become inseparable partners. Joe is shocked by Matt's attire. He's only wearing shorts, made of deerskin. A natural aura hits him. Fortunately, he's wearing sandals. He just sent off a barefoot sage, and now he meets a half-naked man. Joe feels dizzy. Matt shows him his weapon. It's called a bow. It can hunt various small animals. He then offers Joe rainwater he collected. Next, he digs out armadillo meat from the ground. He wraps it in leaves. This locks in all the juices, making the taste even more delicious. They eat heartily. It's too good. It leaves them wanting more. These two men enjoy a feast in the wild, while collecting about 3 liters of rainwater, but this water is not enough for 2 people to drink. Matt says to follow this road west. There's a steep ravine. It might have water, but it's very difficult to descend. They prepare to work together. They reach their destination. The canyon is very deep. This is an adventurous attempt. Matt leads the way. He has rich climbing experience, but there are many loose rocks underfoot. Every step requires caution. A misstep could cause a rock to fall. Matt remains calm. He safely reaches the midpoint. Next, it's Joe's turn. He follows Matt's route down. He's almost at Matt's location, but an accident still happens. He slips on his foot, can't grab the tree trunk. He slides down directly. Fortunately, he reacts quickly. He grabs a small tree. Matt rushes over to pull him up, but the bad news is, their gourd water jug is broken. They continue to climb down. This time, they focus more. Finally, they reach the bottom, but what they see is a leaf-covered area. They flip over the leaves. There's no water underneath. In front is the vast blue sea. They can see an island in the distance. After discussing, they decide to make a raft to the opposite island, but it's almost dark now. They have to wait until tomorrow to act. The next day, they start making the raft. Balsa wood is excellent material. They easily lift a big tree and carry it to the beach. Joe designs the shape with the machete. A few cuts create a hollow. Matt works on the bottom to make it float better on water. Since they have no rope, Matt uses Y-shaped wooden stakes to secure the raft. He forcefully drives the stakes to make the structure stronger. After a while of hard work, everything is ready. They push the raft into the sea. These two men were paddling on a raft on the sea. They were heading for a small island. The raft couldn't fully support the two of them. There were jellyfish everywhere in the water. They had to paddle frantically to leave this area. They left the strait and entered the open sea. The seawater was very hot. They were at risk of heat stroke. After a while, they were close to the island, but a new problem arose: how to safely reach the rocky shore. The waves mercilessly battered the rocks. This was a huge test for the two of them. After a struggle, they dragged the raft ashore. They tied the raft to a tree. They then entered the forest to find water. The trees here were denser. After walking a distance, Matt heard the sound of flowing water. Following the sound, they saw a waterfall. It was a sweet reward. Matt picked it up and drank. This scene startled Joe. He thought they should boil the water before drinking. Matt collected some firewood. He took out a drill to start a fire. He quickly made a fire. Joe was chopping trees. He was making a fire signal. He was preparing to build 3 frames on the beach. To place the campfire, Matt collected some white metal plants. To make tea, he put hot stones in a gourd. The water boiled. Matt came to Joe with the tea. They drank heartily. Joe continued to set up the signal. Matt was responsible for building shelter. He picked some palm leaves. He designed a bed under a big tree. When Joe arrived, a comfortable little nest was completed. Matt took out some palm fruits to share. He said he saw wild boar tracks earlier. They hit it off immediately. They planned to hunt at dawn. Early in the morning, they went to the water's edge, following the wild boar's tracks. They split up. Soon, Matt heard the wild boar's call. He signaled Joe. They relaxed their pace and slowly approached. They saw a wild boar walking leisurely. The wild boar spotted them and started running. They cornered the wild boar. Matt aimed and shot an arrow. The arrow pierced the wild boar's body. The wild boar struggled wildly. The river water quickly turned red. Joe saw his chance. He charged directly, ending the wild boar's suffering. They carried the wild boar back to camp. Then, it was a small barbecue. The taste was quite delicious. They spent a wonderful night. When it was morning, they watched for passing ships on the beach. After waiting for a long time, they finally saw a ship pass by. They lit the distress signal. It attracted the ship's attention. They were rescued.